This is Climate Finance Day, and today we are together to talk about a critical topic, transition strategies. We'll look at both the perspective from an industrial and financial to look at how we can work together to really make an impact and address this priority. So Benoit Bazin, the first question is for you. Can you please tell us about Saint-Gobain's transition strategy, and can you tell us about the main lines of your Transform and Grow plan?
Thank you. Well, we are clearly entering a net zero carbon economy. Building and construction, this is the main market of Saint-Gobain. Buildings have a critical role to play because overall we have 40% of the world's CO2 emissions coming from buildings. This is the number one source of CO2 emissions. Our purpose is making the world a better home. We have the ambition, this is my vision for the group, to become the worldwide leader in light and sustainable construction. Already today, Saint-Gobain solutions are able to decarbonize 2/3 of the building's related CO2 emissions, both from the lifetime of the building and also from the construction of the building. And in addition, of course, those solutions, they can provide significant benefits in terms of natural resource consumption and also health and well-being for the end users. So our new strategy, which I call Grow and Impact, is built indeed on the success of our former plan, which was Transform and Grow. We have kept Grow and we add Impact. Transform and Grow has deeply transformed Saint-Gobain over the last 3 years, and our new plan, Grow and Impact, is built around 3 pillars. First, a focused strategy toward light and sustainable construction. So clearly moving on this deep transition for buildings. Second, move away from product selling, SKU by SKU, towards solution selling. And solutions that have an impact on our customers in terms of CO2 avoidance. And third pillar of this plan, relying on a truly multi-local, multinational, new powerful business governance and culture that I put in place. So for us, ESG is at the core of our strategy. Everything we do has a positive outcome in terms of ESG. We aim at maximizing our positive impact, and I will come back to that in a minute, and minimizing our footprint on the 6 pillars of our CSR roadmap: climate change, circular economy, health and safety across the value chain, including growth, employee engagement, and business ethics. If I take just climate change, for example, our solutions help our customers to decarbonize. We have evaluated through our own internal robust methodology, which has been audited by a third party and publicly made available, that our solutions sold in 1 year avoid 1.3 billion tons of CO2 during the lifetime of the building. It is 40 times the Saint-Gobain footprint on scope 1, 2, and 3. So this is our roadmap on sustainability, and we have decided, of course, to get towards carbon neutrality by 2050 with a robust roadmap altogether, audited by a science-based target initiative. And since 2016, we have applied to all our initiatives our own internal carbon price, which is at 100 euros today. So this is what I wanted to highlight in terms of transition strategy and our plan Grow and Impact.
Mr. Mignon, what about Groupe BPCE? How are you executing on your transition strategy, and how are you working with your clients to make sure that you achieve the Paris Agreement goals?
Well, as we've seen today, the financial industry has a tremendous responsibility and a major role to play in the environmental transition. And that's the reason why, at Groupe BPCE, we decided that climate should be one of the 3 pillars of our strategic plan. Our strategic plan has 3 big pillars: conquest, growing, in fact, clients, client focus, and climate. So it is really at the heart of our strategic plan, which we call BPCE 2024. So for climate, we've got 2 priorities. The first priority is really to decarbonize what is the most important for us, is our portfolio. is our scope 3. How much through our financing we are participating to decarbonizing the economy. So, we are one of the first banking group, I think, to define alignment targets at short, medium, and long term in order to reach a net zero trajectory. Like Saint-Gobain, we have developed a unique climate impact tool, which we call the green weighting factor, which is used to monitor our corporate and investment banking portfolio, financing portfolio, and make sure that it is aligned and help us support the strategic dialogue we have with our clients. This methodology, by the way, is also an open source and fully accessible to anybody else. This green weighting factor methodology, which we launched in 2019, we are able to assess our current temperature, and today our portfolio is at 3.2 degrees, which means that if we weren't doing nothing, our current portfolio of financing will lead to 3.2 degrees increase in temperature by the end of this century. Our goal and our plan is to reach 2.5 in 2024, 2.2 in 2030, and obviously 1.5 degree in 2015. We have joined the Net Zero Banking Alliance in July 2021. And even though the targets are very ambitious, we're very confident because we have the tool to support our commitment. We've got plans, detailed plan, industry by industry, and we have the tool which allow us to go and measure. And anything that you can't measure is something you cannot do. So we do that very carefully. But this tool is not only an help for us in order to measure our portfolio, it's also a very powerful tool to discuss with our clients. First of all, we rely not only on the data that we get from our clients, for example, their carbon emissions, which we get from them, but we also have a very deep strategic dialogue with them, and that allows us to put more elements within our models and help us defining what is the color of the client. Our methodology classify client or project from 7 grades. It goes from dark brown to dark green and goes from brown, light brown, white, light green, green, and dark green. According to our analysis, and thanks to this dialogue, Saint-Gobain has been rated light green by our green weighting factor, Benoit.
Thank you.
Which makes a lot of sense given your decarbonization strategy and your achievement in greening the building and construction industry so far. But so it's just to illustrate that it is really a work that we do client by client, or project by project, and doing so, this is available to our bankers so that in their day-to-day dialogue with their client, they know what they can do in order to improve, and the dialogue they can have with their client to improve this rating. This is the first priority, decarbonize our portfolio. The second priority is to support all our clients in their environmental transition. It's huge investment that is ahead of us in order to decarbonize the industry. And when Saint-Gobain is developing new materials to make buildings more efficient, Groupe BPCE is advising a client on these matters through specific external partnership whenever necessary. We've got a partnership with a firm called Cosynergie, for example, that will help them taking the right materials and make sure that they can have the right diagnostic in order to have building construction renovation that are done the proper way in order to save carbon. But this is an illustration of what we can do. Globally, to support this transition, Groupe BPCE has a target of adding 21 billion over the period up to 2024 in the financing of building energy efficiency, in renewable energy and green mobility. And that are 3 key elements in order to achieve our targets. So as a matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, in order to show how important it is, not only getting away from emissive industry, but also to favor the fact to develop a green building, for example, we have been the first one to issue a major residential mortgage-based security, RMBS, which is specifically dedicated to finance low-consumption housing projects. This single issuance allows us to raise 1.5 billion, which will be redistributed to the financing through our Caisse d'Épargne and Banque Populaire networks in order to support those things. So this is illustration of what we do, but I think it's very important because we will gain that on a day-to-day basis by dialogue with our client and financing project on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Laurent, for sharing your priorities. Sounds like you have a very clear roadmap and very precise targets. Now, Benoit, I'd like to have your view on this. The market is standing ahead of a progressive wave of new regulations aiming at supporting the sustainability transition. So how do you think it will impact private players? And do you believe it will contribute to accelerate their transition?
The answer is yes. And I would say it's striking how quickly the finance world is evolving in the recent years. ESG is now one of the main topics that we addressed during roadshows with investors. It was not the case 3 or 5 years ago. And we are seeing, of course, a wave of new regulation, private initiatives, a lot of actions in Europe, but not only. I would say that on one side, it is very positive because it's a big push and it's very, very helpful. Obviously, finance investors, they have a very strong lever on the changes. I think what is very important is to make sure that all the time we stay connected to the reality. And what Groupe BPCE has been doing, and Laurent Mignon highlighted that very well, is that you need to be very pragmatic. Look at project by project, sector by sector, company by company. And I think it's very important to keep a down-to-earth approach. We are talking about a physical reality, decarbonize, CO2 tons. It's not, a theoretical finance world. It's down to reality of what we need to deliver for the planet. Let's take one example on that, the European taxonomy. In principle, it's a very good tool and a good idea. But in reality, it is very complex. If I take the Saint-Gobain portfolio, only a limited amount of Saint-Gobain is eligible today to the European taxonomy. Not because our activities are not sustainable, but it's because it's extremely difficult to have the right approach and to have the ability to analyze the complexity of the solutions that we are providing to the building sector. So over the last 12 months, we have done a deep work to assess the sustainable benefits of our solutions. We have worked with a third party. We have developed our own methodology that is made public to quantify those benefits on a number of use cases. We describe use cases, market by market for Saint-Gobain. And we can say it could be, renovation of a single house in France. It could be a new office building in India, whatever. We are able to demonstrate on those use cases that 72% of our sales are sustainable today. And this is kind of internal taxonomy. We wanted to move ahead, move fast. I think is a good example that could inspire the finance committee and helps us in dialogue with the Groupe BPCE on very concrete, pragmatic actions to move forward.
Thank you very much, Benoit.
Thank you.
Now, Laurent, my last question is for you. I'd like to know your thoughts on climate risk considerations. Do you think there are becoming major factors for industrial players to access capital from the financial markets? And the second part of my question, at Groupe BPCE level, how do you structure capital? Do you structure capital differently due to climate risk considerations?
Well, the answer is shortly yes, but I will make it a little bit longer. Let me share with you a little bit the view of the financial ecosystem and explain probably after how French bank and in general and Groupe BPCE in particular act into this ecosystem. If you look to the ecosystem today, you've got three kinds. You've got the investors, you've got banks, and you've got the regulators. So if you look to investors, on all asset class and across now the whole world, and we talk to them on a daily basis, we interact with them on a daily basis. They are massively deploying their climate strategy. These strategies range from exclusion to thematic investment, but also include the default ESG, climate integration of all assets under management, with a key focus on energy actors. What started a few years ago as a pioneering strategy from the first movers is gradually now becoming a must-have. Everybody is in line with that. Two banks, and especially I think European banks, are also moving fast with their own climate strategy to feed many dimensions: strategic sector positioning, product offering, balance sheet management, client strategic dialogue, client tiering, product tiering. And then you've got regulator, and they are also taking an active part in this journey by normalizing and monitoring the transition. On that matter, we appreciate the milestone set by the EU with a sustainable taxonomy, but at the same time, we encourage further development in designing, like Benoit mentioned, a taxonomy framework for transition activities that recognize the tremendous effort of companies such as Saint-Gobain. This is also important so that banks can continue financing their clients' transition without being penalized through their green asset ratio. We cannot go from one stage to the other. It will take some time, and it will be a long journey, and we need to be able to recognize the progress that has been done. As a matter of fact, I'm CEO of BPCE, but I'm also the president of the Climate Commission of the FBF. And I can testify that the French banks are at the forefront of this transformation. After their commitment in 2019 to exit from the coal industry, the 6 major French banks have decided to exit the non-conventional oil and gas industry. They will namely no longer finance projects in the shale oil and gas and tar sand industry. They won't either fund corporates that are active in these industries above 30% threshold, and they are continuing their work to see whether a definitive exclusion date can be forecast in the coming years. So this is concrete engagement that are being taken. At the same time, French banks are actively financing the transition. To give you just one figure, the renewable energy sector has increased globally by 39% between 2016 and 2020 in the financing portfolio of banks. In the same period, the sector has increased by 36%. But at the same period, banks have increased their financing in this sector by 69%, and now it's reached roughly 44 billion at the end of 2020. So, as you see, there's many things that are being done. We need to recognize transition as being a real move. This is not easy because defining the target is easy. The starting point is not that easy, but the transition and the path is probably the most difficult thing to be done, and we need to make sure that we can do that. So we need to work on that. At Groupe BPCE, we really want to leverage on a holistic approach to address this transformation within all our business, the CIB business, obviously, because probably it's where we finance 80% of the emission through our corporate and investment banking, but also through our asset management and our retail and insurance activities. It is our duty to make sure that we are one of the major part of this movement to decarbonizing our economy and industry and support our client transition and the huge investment that will be needed in order to do this transition.
Thank you, Laurent. Thank you, Benoit. There is definitely a lot more to say on this fascinating topic, but I hear it's time to conclude. So thank you very much for sharing with us today.
Thank you very much.